The Galactic Consortium had existed for 500,000 years, a parliament of civilizations so old their myths had eroded into equations. They had charted entire arms of spiral, categorized every viable biosphere, and indexed life into predictability. They had learned one universal truth: intelligence and comfort were siblings. The more advanced the species became, the more it insulated itself from chaos. Survival became theory. Danger became data. So when the scanners picked up a blue-green planet in a minor spiral arm, they expected routine, primitive carbon life, oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere, and a barely industrial culture broadcasting static and fear. The analysts reviewed the telemetry and classified the species as transitional, on the brink of self-annihilation. Typical, the report stamped them, Tier 9 primitive, extinction probable within 2 millennia. And yet, something in the data unsettled them. The numbers didn't fit. Radiation levels were lethal to most species, yet the organisms flourished. Viral plagues shaped their evolution instead of ending it. Planetary temperature swings that would sterilize lesser biospheres were merely called seasons. It was, in every measurable way, a place that should not host complex life. But it did. When the xenobiologists presented the planetary dossier, they used a term that hadn't been spoken in centuries: Deathworld. The committee laughed at first. The classification system ended at Class 1. No world had been recorded below that threshold. Class 0 existed only in theory, a mathematical fiction. A place so hostile that even self-replicating machines would disintegrate in moments. But the data was there, immutable. Gravity nearly twice the galactic average. Tectonic instability. Atmosphere dense with reactive compounds. Megafauna with evolutionary aggression curves off every chart. The models all concluded the same. By galactic standards, Earth was a Class 0, and the creatures living there, humans, were the apex of that madness. Curiosity defeated caution. The consortium voted to engage. They justified it as scientific research, an experiment in resilience. Quietly, it was entertainment. Civilizations grown soft and stagnant found novelty in chaos. The plan was simple. Send 12 humans to an artificial Class 0 world, a construct built from the combined data of the most hostile environments known. Observe, record, learn how the universe's most improbable survivors behaved when dropped into something worse than their own birth world. They named the construct Erebus 9. The habitat was colossal, a continent-sized biosphere orbiting a dead star, where every rule of nature was twisted for extremity. Rain carried acids mild enough to dissolve metal over hours. The soil pulsed with microbes that devoured synthetic material. Plants competed by emitting neurotoxins. Radiation storms tore the sky in rhythmic tempests. It was engineered not to sustain life, but to mock it. When the human team arrived, the aliens gathered across 1,000 observation channels. Their avatars glimmered in council halls, sensory pods, and shared thought nodes. For many, it was the first time they had witnessed death not as simulation, but as spectacle. The humans emerged from their landing craft under a broken red sun. Their suits flickered with shielding fields, their faces hidden behind polarized visors. No speeches, no rituals. They moved with quiet precision, scanning, sampling, mapping. The consortium expected panic, confusion, the primal terror of beings removed from home. But what they saw was procedure. Within the first hour, the humans had established perimeter beacons, marked shelter zones, and begun cataloging environmental hazards. They didn't scream when their drones melted. They didn't pray when the rain hissed into vapor around their boots. They adjusted parameters, compensated, continued. In the command theater, a dozen alien minds murmured through shared translation nodes. "Are they ignoring the danger?" one asked. Another replied, "No, they're adapting before reacting." A third whispered, "They calculate risk emotionally. That's impossible." The first day passed without casualty. The second brought storms that shattered alloy structures, winds laced with silica that cut through armor like knives. The humans did not retreat. They reconfigured debris into windbreaks, harvested shards as cutting tools, and used the storm's static charge to power their depleted batteries. By the third day, one of the team, designation Elias, was injured when corrosive plant struck through his suit. The feed showed him collapsing in mud as acidic rain pooled around him. The aliens leaned closer, eager for their first data on human mortality. But the others didn't flee. They dragged him beneath cover, sealed his wounds using a field cauterizer, and laughed. Laughter, that inexplicable sound that made no sense in pain. The translators rendered no equivalent word. The alien observers began to argue. Some called for intervention, citing ethical statutes. Others wanted the feed expanded. Curiosity overrode empathy. Hours turned to days. The humans adapted faster than environmental algorithms could predict. They identified edible fungi, engineered detox compounds from local biochemistry, and constructed thermal shelters from organic residue. Each problem became material, each wound a lesson. The consortium's chief behavioral analyst, a crystalline entity older than most stars, admitted confusion. They don't seek balance, it said. They seek control. This is not survival. This is conquest. The longer the humans endured, the more the alien data models failed. Predictive curves flattened, error margins expanded exponentially. When they simulated outcomes, every projection collapsed within 48 hours. Reality persisted. The humans were rewriting probability itself, not through technology, but through will. By the 10th day, the first environmental anomaly occurred. The biosphere began to change. Atmospheric sensors detected localized reductions in toxicity where the humans operated. Flora near their camps evolved secondary root structures adapted to human waste products. The world itself was responding, learning from them. The alien scientists dismissed it as data corruption until cross-verification confirmed authenticity. Erebus 9's adaptive ecosystem, meant to outpace all survival attempts, was cooperating. The humans didn't seem surprised. In their mission log, one wrote, "Everything alive wants to keep living. That's something we understand." Weeks passed. They hunted predators, dissected carcasses, and learned patterns of aggression. When the environment sent creatures that could melt metal with exhaled vapor, the humans countered with traps that froze breath into shards. When bioluminescent vines began creeping into their shelters at night, they burned them, then used the ash as insulation. The process was brutally simple. Observe, endure, adapt, improve. The consortium convened emergency councils. Debate split along philosophical lines. Some believed humanity represented a fundamental error in evolution, a species whose capacity for suffering had become its primary survival mechanism. Others argued that they were witnessing the next stage of galactic life, one unafraid of entropy. One observer noted something chilling. Their planet trained them. They never evolved away from danger. They evolved with it. We removed chaos from our worlds and grew weaker. They worshipped chaos and grew wise. The data feed showed the human camp expanding. They had named the human colony Perdition 3, though no human had ever agreed to that title. The Galactic Registry stamped it anyway. Class 0 Deathworld, provisional containment. The irony was sharp now, because the containment had reversed. The world had tamed invaders, and in doing so, redefined what survival meant for everyone watching. For months, alien fleets orbited the perimeter, watching, waiting, calculating how an impossible experiment had birthed a civilization that should never have existed. Below, the humans were still alive. More than alive. They were changing the planet's metrics, altering weather systems, bending ecosystems to thrive alongside them. It wasn't supposed to happen. No sentient race had ever lasted longer than 40 days on a Class 0. Humanity had lasted 4 years. When the first orbital scans caught what looked like cities, actual cities, the councils laughed. The gravity alone should have crushed them. The storm should have erased their traces. Yet the scans didn't lie. Metallic signatures, geothermal power grids, defensive perimeters made from scavenged alien wreckage. And at the center of it all, faint signals pulsing in prime number rhythm, the oldest form of human greeting. We are here. Up in orbit, the observation commander of the consortium fleet tried to make sense of it. They should have died, he said, half in awe, half in fear. No carbon-based organism survives perdition storms. His aide only whispered, Perhaps they're no longer just carbon, because the world had changed them. The atmosphere was a poison cocktail of methane and ferrosilicates, yet humans had turned it into an industry. They mined storms. They harvested lightning. They drank radiation like water. Their gene lines had diverged from baseline humanity, but it wasn't chaos. It was adaptation on a scale no simulation had predicted. Every breath they took defied galactic biology. Their children were born with lungs like reactors, their skin layered with metallic dust. Their eyes adapted to ultraviolet light. The aliens had called it mutation. The humans called it evolution under pressure. What terrified the Council wasn't what the humans had become, but what they remembered. Even after all transformation, they kept symbols, tattered flags, songs encoded in data chips, whispers of Earth passed from parent to child as a myth. Their mythology of endurance survived even when their bodies did not. And then came the broadcast. The signal burst from perdition, 3 without warning, hijacking half the galactic relay network. A simple voice, crackling with distortion, yet unmistakably human. To those who sent us here, thank you for underestimating us. It wasn't a threat. It was a statement, calm and absolute. Across the galaxy, every species understood the subtext. Humanity had endured hell and come out stronger. What happens when the experimenters realize their subjects have become the apex? Panic rippled through the consortium. Treaties were revisited, alliances questioned, fleets mobilized. But the humans did not attack. They built instead. Massive launch structures rose from the toxic plains, shaped like spires reaching back toward the stars. Observers wondered if it was a plea for return, or a declaration that they no longer needed permission. In the ruins of their first landing site, old Earth relics were embedded into new architecture. A fragment of shuttle hull carried words still legible after 4 years of corrosion. Made on Earth by humans. The phrase became a rallying creed. And then, the impossible happened again. Perdition. 3 sent its first outbound vessel. Not a distress beacon, not an escape pod, but a fully functional ship built from the planet's own volatile metals. It tore itself free from the gravity that had once tried to crush it and soar into orbit, engines pulsing with plasma drawn from the world's core. Its destination, the fleet that had once watched them like gods over ants. The consortium prepared for war. But when the human ship arrived, it did not open fire. It transmitted one file, a map, not of perdition, but of the other class 0 worlds. There were 12 across the galaxy, long abandoned as unsalvageable. The message was simple. You feared what could not live. We call it home. We're going there next. The broadcast paralyzed every command center. It wasn't expansion. It was reclamation. Humanity had found a purpose in the very places the universe had discarded. And somewhere inside that decision was a deeper truth. Deathworlds were not cursed. They were tests. Worlds that demanded everything a species could give. The humans didn't just survive them. They learned from them. As perdition, 3 became the heart of the new frontier. Alien scholars began to whisper an uncomfortable theory, that perhaps the humans were never entirely biological, that maybe, deep within their DNA, there was something ancient, coded for chaos, for resilience, for becoming exactly what the universe required to continue. But the truth was simpler, more terrifying. They weren't chosen. They simply refused to end. Within the orbiting fleet, the first alien envoys were granted permission to land. What they found defied categorization. The cities glowed with ionized mist, powered by storms harnessed into energy grids. Humans walked through lightning like rain, their movements calm, deliberate, reverent. They did not hate their creators. They had simply outgrown them. The envoy leader asked a question that had haunted every council since the first broadcast. Why stay here when you could leave? The answer was quiet, almost gentle, because this is where life is honest. Perdition. 3 was a mirror held to galaxy's fear. Every other species had spent millennia hiding from chaos, designing comfort, avoiding pain. Humanity stepped into it willingly and emerged with clarity. They understood what it meant to earn existence rather than inherit it. As months passed, contact with other death worlds began. The humans didn't colonize them. They awakened them. Machines were seeded, habitats built, ecosystems coaxed back to life under their new, brutal equilibrium. And across the galaxy, something began to shift. Species once proud of their fragility started to question it. The myth of safety crumbled. They wanted to learn what the humans had found. Not just survival, but meaning. The term Deathworld began to lose its sting. It became a challenge, a rite of passage. By the time the fourth human-led expedition left perdition, 3. The universe itself seemed to lean closer. The humans were not gods, not invaders. They were catalysts. Wherever they went, entropy became order, ruin became renewal. And still, behind every act, there lingered a whisper. The original words in her first transmission. Thank you for underestimating us. What no one realized yet was that those words were not addressed to the aliens. They were a message to existence itself.